everyone always is talking about, on automate, make things more efficient, get the most bang for my buck. But are you really doing the things that are in the best interest of the long-term business goals and honestly, like mental health and the people at your company?
Hello, WordPress people. Welcome back to the WPMRR WordPress podcast. I'm Christie.
And I'm Joe.
And you're listening to the WordPress Business Podcast. What's going on in your life this week, Joe?
What is going on this week? It kind of just feels like just another week. I feel like I'm starting to stress a little bit more about like November and like election things coming up. I'm usually pretty good and like even keel about most things, and like I usually don't have like trouble sleeping or like stress out too much about stuff, but I feel like I'm starting to like, it's starting to wear on me more. I know a lot of people who it's like, it's been wearing on me for 4 years. What are you talking about? And like, I totally get that perspective, but I feel like now it's starting to come to a head a little bit. And yeah, I'm starting to like make some more donations, and I bought some like t-shirts and I bought some yard signs and like trying to help a little bit more financially. But yeah, it feels like that time of like a little bit more stress coming. So I'm trying to like not be involved in the news all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be very selective about my digesting of information, because I feel like it's like eating food. It's like if you eat junk food all the time, like you'll like not be very healthy. It's kind of the same with information. If you just take information and junk information all the time, it's not good for your brain. So I'm trying to be very selective about like, trying to read things from a wide variety of things, but like being very selective about my time. Like this is my like hour to like cruise Washington Post app or like, New York Times or like whatever. But not like trying to be on my phone all the time. So yeah, it feels like a little bit of more of a high stress week, but overall, things are all right with me. How about you? What's going on with you?
Yeah, I think just another week is similar. Definitely the election and those issues wearing down is just a constant feature, right? I don't know, Joe. I don't think it's a competition. It's not like, well, I've been stressed out longer than you. Like, good for you. Do you want a cookie? Like, how your cortisol levels doing, right? Like, this is a terrible thing to win. So I'm glad, right, that you haven't been freaking out over the past 4 years. I don't think there's a medal for higher levels of dysfunction caused by stress.
Although it kind of feels like that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know that feeling? It's like, oh, that person's like really like vocal about these things or active. Like am I like not as good of a person because I'm like not freaking out as much? Like, and to be clear, like, of course, I've had like base level freak out for the last 4 years, like everybody has, but trying not to like let it take me over, I guess. But
right.
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
I mean, that's exactly right. I think that, yes, I'm deeply concerned about a very clear descent into American fascism. Like, that's a thing that's happening. With that said, right, like, I'm still a human that needs to put food on my cat's bowl and stuff. Like, I was going to
your marble cat, the cutest little kitty ever.
My little marble cat, she's so cute. But I was going to say on the table, but I just like felt so silly, right? I like edited mid-sentence there. But you get my point, right? Like there is still a sense of, even activists need to consider survival and stress management and self-care because you're a human first. And I, have spent most of my life in activist circles. Like my work in WordPress is sort of the first time that I've like been in a politically neutral environment. I say that with air quotes in it because, I think all it is political, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, if anybody's seen your Twitter account, they know. They're still quite involved.
It's always been a part of my life, and it's always been normal, right? And I don't know. It's I've watched interest in things that I've been involved with for a long time go up, and the sort of like existing activist circles frequently talk about how you can't be an activist 100% of the time, just like you can't be a CEO 100% of the time, or a product strategist 100%, or a developer 100% of the time, right? Like you have to have other stuff in your life, and nothing can consume you because not everything is a win all the time. So I don't know, but I feel that I definitely have been in mild freak out since 2016, early 2016, you know? And oh man, I remember like walking into work crying when our current president was nominated by his political party as their front runner. And um I think that plus the stress of just the pandemic and the stress of life, it can be a lot. And take time off, etc. But my week, I don't know, it's another week, right? I think the interesting bit about my week is that it's a 4-day week. We took off Labor Day, and I'm delivering the same 90-minute training 6 times, which is hilarious, including one time at 10 p.m.
6 times the same training?
6 times the same training, 6 times.
Because like Nexcess / Liquid Web is such a big company, like you have to like do it 6 times to like give
to get everyone
time to attend once.
And we
big
wanted
company problems that I don't even think about, but that I guess makes sense, but still crazy.
We wanted to do it live, right? So that I can, so that we can manage interaction and things like that, because this is sort of like a big quarterly, hey, here's all the stuff that's new that you need to know about type thing. So we're doing it 6 times, same 90-minute training, including one at 10 p.m. because this is another thing people don't think about with web hosting, right? We have overnight staff.
Yeah, right.
Because if you're up at 2 a.m, working on your site or whatever, and things go down, there has to be a human there with pretty serious technical chops, right? There to help you. So we have highly trained overnight staff. And so 10 p.m. for one of those groups. And it's fun. And I don't know, I'm experiencing my first bout of Austin rain, which is interesting. It's been pretty sunny in Texas the entire time I've been here, right? They say Florida's a sunshine state, but anyone who's ever spent serious time in Florida knows that it's actually the partly cloudy state. Texas is the real sunshine state, except for this week.
Yeah, I totally feel that every time I go to Texas. It's usually pretty nice out, unless it's like a super crazy hailstorm / tornado. Then it's usually nice.
There's no in between.
Yeah. Can I ask a question about doing the same video or the same presentation 6 times? Is it not more scalable at a big company to record your presentation and then have people ask you more asynchronous questions when they have them, and have everyone watch the video on their own like time whenever they have time in their schedules to do it, instead of having to scale your time like backwards to like have to give the same presentation live 6 times? Or is that not true? Or is it just like not how policy works over there? I don't know.
It's not a policy thing. It's a human thing. Of course, we know that we can record videos and send them to people and then ask them to send their async questions. We also know that when we give someone who mostly works based on shift and whose incentives and KPIs are primarily about the ability to close things, whether that is support tickets, whether that is sales, and then we give them a 90-minute activity that would not immediately affect the indicator by which they are assessed, they're not going to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's called incentives. Right? We incentivize the behavior that we want. We don't want you to goof off. We don't want you to watch YouTube videos. We want you to close tickets and close sales. And so if we make it a thing that you can do in between the things that do drive your performance, hey, here, just take 90 minutes out of your day to not work and work towards your key performance indicators, and instead watch this video, which of course you might argue, hey, but that has a long-term impact on the ability to close sales. Yeah, but that's not how we work, right? Like, it's just not how people work. I don't work like that. I look at my immediate incentives, right? Like, what's the bear that's
incentivized to attend live, as opposed to like watching it whenever on their schedule. Do they have
Right.
like a checklist item that their manager checks? Like, did you attend this training in one of the 6
Mhm.
times? Or like, how is it
Yeah.
incentivized?
So the 6 sessions all take attendance, and then we have live Q&A. It's like school, right? Like, we know that some things in life don't have immediate reward but have long-term reward, and we also know that we as humans tend to not really handle the idea of long-term reward well, not as well as we handle the idea of short-term reward. So to hack ourselves around that, we need to put in other short-term incentives to work towards the long-term reward. So attendance is mandatory.
It's very interesting, actually. Being a new dad, one of the things I've learned is that one of the best things you can teach and educate your child on is long-term benefits as opposed to short-term like benefits, because that is a real indicator of like independence and like true success, true long-term success. Because if like I want to like eat a like cheeseburger right now, like that's not super good for my health, but that's like short-term satisfaction. But if you can train kids to have like, oh, like if I exercise 6 times in 7 days over like a week, that's good, even though it's like long-term give back. Same thing over a month or over years. Like, so I do understand that. I guess I get the human interaction thing. Like, it's good to be, especially now that like everyone's fully remote and it's like people are kind of starved for social interaction. It's kind of good to like force people like into like have this live call with Christie so you can actually like be there while she's there, and it adds to the human interaction thing while we're all kind of starved a little bit for more human interaction. So I get that.
So that's actually the other challenge behind these, since we're talking about this now, is that in the past, so I've been at this company for 1.5 years now, right? I've been with Liquid Web, now Nexcess, and we've done this training. This is sort of like a periodic thing that happens in person. The 2 other times that we've done them in the time that I've been here, we fly to this office in San Antonio, and we deliver the trainings in person in a conference room, and we have a human interaction, right? Because it's so important and it's so needed for long-term success. That's one of the items that draws us into the office. So it's also, it again, there's so much emotional management that goes into this particular thing, right? Because it's also, do you know the people who are the product team, right? So the people who are developing and growing and making decisions about why the product works the way it does, because then the support teams and the sales teams are sort of like the front lines of explaining the product, what it does, what it cannot do, why we do these things, what they can do instead. And so do you know and trust the people that then are making those decisions and bringing them on down for you to explain? There's so much elements of camaraderie and of short-term and long-term incentive management that go into this. And I actually think it's quite challenging in a fully remote setting, because even if we are increasing engagement by not making a recording and sending it out and asking for async questions, we're still, like, how many people are multitasking when they're on Zoom? Most of them.
Yeah. I think it's a interesting conversation around, because you'd think at a bigger company, people would want to automate more and they'd want things to be more efficient. And of course you do, but not if you're going to sacrifice human interaction and the ability to have high impact and move things forward. And this, I think, is a good example of like, yeah, it takes a little bit more time and effort for you to do 6 trainings, but to do them all live and really interact with your team and to get everyone meeting and on the same page. It's not super scalable. It's not terribly efficient, but it does incentivize the right things over the long term. And I think it's a big lesson, I think, because everyone always is talking about, I want to automate, make things more efficient, get the most bang for my buck. But are you really doing the things that are in the best interest of the long-term business goals and honestly, like mental health and the people at your company? So I think that's interesting to talk about that, because I think I was thinking like, yeah, just like shoot a video and make sure everyone's incentivized to watch it, but like there are other goals you have in mind, not just the training. Like there's, secondary and probably tertiary goals that are maybe not quite as important, but are definitely like right there in terms of like importance. So I buy that. So you sold me live, doing it live.
And that actually leads us perfectly into our topic for today.
Nice. Segue into today's episode. Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic because I think it's very timely. I think that there's been a lot of chatter around, like there's almost this like no meeting camp of people who are like, meetings suck. Why? Like, no meetings, don't have meetings, just have people do stuff and like you'll make it. And like I guess I like understand like the theory behind that, but I don't think it works very well in practice. Like personally, I think that meetings are actually super important. And I actually really like the meetings we have, but there's a reason for that. Like I've worked I used to like do government consulting. Like I had meetings that were horrible, like the worst meetings you could ever think of. And I was like so bored in them. Like, why am I here? And like literally all the worst things about meetings. And so I think it's important to talk today about how to do meetings virtually, how to do them effectively, how to create meetings that you like, that are high impact. I think like when you finish a meeting, you should not be like, what the fuck? Like, why was I even there? Like, what was the point of that? You should be energized. You should be ready to like take next steps. You should be like, it should light a fire under you. Like, that's what a meeting should like end up with. So yeah, anything else you want to add before we move forward?
No, I couldn't agree more. I also have been skeptical of people who are like, oh, I hate meetings. I do think that there is a certain role type that, we got to keep those people out of meetings and producing. And that's what they're great at. But there are many more roles where the interpersonal skills required to have effective meetings are pretty important. And to me, it's a red flag when someone that is in a role that could be anything remotely close to that is like, oh, I hate meetings. Like, no,
like a manager or a leader at a company. Like, well, meetings is like a lot of your job. So
yeah. And as a person who likes people, I really enjoy meetings. I'm productive in meetings, and I tend to be the person in meetings that's like, so what are we gonna do? And bringing that energy into meetings kind of make meetings a lot more pleasant. So yeah, how to have effective Zoom meetings, brought to you from the person who's doing the same 90-minute training 6 times in the next 6 days.
Expert.
8 days because there's a weekend in there. The basics. We can go over the basics first. Zoom is a very popular video conferencing software. There are others that you've heard of, such as Skype and GoToMeeting. They're Google Meet. Essentials of getting on there: you need a webcam and a microphone. Your computer probably has a webcam and a microphone, so you're good today in 2020. Mute yourself when you're not talking. I think that's the number one rule of meetings overall. We don't want to hear the stuff that's going on in the background, with the caveat that you should unmute yourself to laugh and to clap. Remember to set your name. I think a lot of people look over that one. If you log into meetings,
I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. I think about this a lot. I'm in a lot of meetings. Set your name. If you end up joining from your phone or your iPad or whatever, sometimes it'll say something like Christie's iPhone. And, sometimes you're in contexts where it might be more helpful for that to say something like Christie Chirinos. So set your name. Understand the difference between speaker view and gallery view. Most video conferencing apps have a setting in which you can see yourself and the person who's talking, and then you can see a grid view of all the people that are in the meeting. And most video conferencing apps do have a setting where you can hide your face. A lot of people find it really distracting to look at themselves when talking to other people, because we don't do that in the real world, right?
Does Zoom do that? So you can obviously you can turn your camera off so that your video is not on, but is it possible just to remove your block. I
Mhm.
didn't even know that. How do
Yep.
you do that?
Your
I would love
face
to. I'm always
from your
distracted. I'm
prof
like, why am I looking at myself? Am I vain? Like, why am I, this is so, I'm looking at myself right now. This is very weird. Like, why am I focused on that? But like, how do you do that?
Yep. It is. I think it's called something like hide preview, or something like
Okay.
that of yourself. Yeah,
It's in the options somewhere. Okay.
and it's in
It's
the
good to know.
options.
I learned something new
Yeah,
today.
and you can just make it so that you don't have to look at your own face because, again, when we talk face to face to people, we're not looking at our own faces. That would be really distracting. So it helps make that communication a little bit more seamless. So those are your basics.
Yeah. I'll tell you as a manager of people myself and someone who I know how important it is to be detail oriented, if someone came into a meeting and it said like Christie's iPhone, like I wouldn't be upset. Like I'd get it. I'm like, yeah, you joined with your iPhone. Okay. But there is a little bit of attention to detail that I'd be like, well, you didn't take like 1 second to like make sure that the thing you did was right. Like 100%. And it's not like it wouldn't be a negative, but it does beg the question of like, if you miss this detail, like what other details do you miss? Right. And that's what I'm really thinking about. So that's a totally little thing, but I think it's like, again, from my perspective as a manager, so people out there who have like bosses or managers, like when you miss a detail, it does beg the question, like what other little details are you missing? And so it's important to like when I set up my Calendly and like to like book a call with me, like I set up all the like options like perfectly to make sure all the details are right, because that sets up a great expectation for the call, because people think like, whoa, this person's really professional, like I'm gonna have a awesome call with this person, and then you have an awesome call, but it's because it like led into that expectation. So not a big deal, but it's about little things a lot of the time. So that's something I think that people should, take an extra 2 seconds to like fill your name out correctly.
I actually think that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about here. There's a lot of things when it has to effective Zoom meetings that aren't bad things, but they're things that for some reason we can't explain, just rub us the wrong way. And the reason is they don't remind us of in-person communication. Right. And so being able to notice those details and be aware of them and consciously address them is a really important skill right now. And that's what people mean when they say effective Zoom meetings. It's all of those unwritten things, because there is no unwritten book right now. There's no written book right now. There's just all of these senses and whispers about the things that make us feel weird about Zoom.
Yeah, totally. I'm so glad we're doing this episode, because like I'm learning so much too. I think that's another thing that bothers me a little bit about having like Christie's iPhone as like the name. It's like, am I talking to Christie's iPhone right now? Like I'm talking to like an iPhone right now? Like, no, I'm talking to Christie. And it adds that another level of like, I'm talking to the person, not to the technology device. And I think that's like, it helps me to like mentally skip the iPhone and go straight to like, I'm talking with Christie right now. So that's a super interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that, but I love that idea.
I think about this a lot because I'm in a lot of meetings and I want to make them effective because I don't like wasting my time.
I'm glad you know about all this stuff because you're teaching me. So this is good. Zoom security. You mentioned there's a bunch of options out there for meetings. A quick rant on Google Meet. Every time I try to create a meeting, it like automatically adds the link into a Google meeting in my calendar invite, which is like totally annoying. And I understand why Google is doing it from a business perspective, but like, stop, please. Like I put my Zoom links there. Like, why are you adding a Google Meet link? Totally confusing. And I hate that. So Google, please stop. But if you're using Zoom and any other software for meetings, you want to make sure you have the right security in place. I've read some stuff that, because Zoom had some security issues and has had security issues in the past, but I've read some stuff that they're actually soon going to be the most secure video system out there, because they're doing a lot more for it. People can feel free to go out and read more than I can tell you here on this episode. But the things to do for security are like, one, make sure you have a waiting room in place. I think Zoom is actually requiring I might not be right in this, but I think at some point later this year, they're requiring waiting rooms for every call, or maybe they're requiring some sort of password for every call. I think it's meeting rooms. So these things are actually putting into place to keep everyone more secure, but you should definitely have a waiting room secure. So someone will knock and they'll show up like, this person's in the waiting room, and you can just click to accept them or not. Like I've had random people show up in my Zoom room, or people show up at the wrong time and like, don't want them just popping in. So have a waiting room in place. You can also personalize your waiting room to have a nice personal message and your picture right there, and like hey. I'll be here in 1 second. So that's nice. A password as well. You can add a password to your meetings. I don't think I have passwords for my meetings, but the waiting room does everything you'd need to make sure like no one unwanted comes in your room at any given time. So I think maybe for my meetings, I need more security. I can add a password. But for the most part, the meeting room does a good job. So meeting room is like the big thing. So if you're doing Zoom, just it's under settings, just toggle it on, personalize it a little bit, and yeah, just go from there.
Yeah. Waiting room, I think, is essential. Passwords can be really helpful when you don't necessarily know who is coming to the meeting, but you know that only a specific group of people is supposed to come to the meeting, right? So if you send out an invitation for an event or something like that, and you don't want like random people who somehow got the link, right, or guessed it or whatever to pop in, but you don't necessarily know that you're going to know every single name of the people who are supposed to be there. That's where passwords can be really helpful. Whereas waiting rooms, like, yeah, if you're having team meetings, right, you know exactly who you're expecting and you're letting them in and you're not letting in anybody else who isn't supposed to be there. Something I did once that was super fun was I posted a Zoom link onto my Twitter account, and then I had a waiting room on, and then I watched all the spammers try to get in and they couldn't get in. And I was like, ha, 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 ha.
Wow. Very bold. Like, I know my security settings are right. I'm good to go. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty funny because that is something that happens. Like people are trolling and doing like Zoom bombs.
And that's a Wikipedia page now.
I assume oh, wow.
Yeah, Zoom
so it's
bombing.
A real thing now.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, geez. But people are like, I assume they have some sort of script doing a search on Twitter for like zoom.us/9 numbers or something to like look for like people who are posting things, and then they have some. Yeah, I mean, don't get Zoom bombed. It's a scary thing. So, agreed with all that. Okay, cool. This will be interesting also because like I work at a smaller company, and Christie, you're like a much bigger company with bigger Zoom meetings. So we can talk about a little bit like, some best practices for smaller ones and for bigger ones, and maybe like what could be good for one and not good for the other, what's good for both or what's not good for both. I think there's a lot of intricacies in like the size of the Zoom meeting as well. So we've got a few things here. Some of the basics you already talked about. One thing that we really like to do at WP Bust is we have a designated note taker for every meeting. And we usually like spin that around, or we have someone new do it every time. So that everyone gets a little practice doing it. And it's not just like one person's like responsibility as a note taker, because that can kind of feel a little bit like I'm just here to take notes. Like that's all I'm really here for. And we want it to like, I guess, share that around a little bit. But what's helpful for that is you have like a list of all like the main things you talked about. And I guess we can pull this item into, which is just action items. Like I always like to have, like in meetings, I like to have action items, like really explicitly said. And like, do you have that like taken down as a note? Like, is it added a task? Is that task added to your list? And then it'll be also regurgitated in notes that are sent out right after the meeting, so that one, you have all the notes from the call, and two, you have actual action items for everybody who is on the call and like tagged with that person, so that they can make sure that they have taken those action items after the call. The one thing about the notes is the way we keep them is we just throw them into Slack. I don't know if that's the most efficient way to do things or like place to keep them, but what we do is we always hashtag meeting notes. And so you can do a search in Slack, search for hashtag meeting notes and check off marketing channel. So you can just look all and see all the meeting notes. And then we date everyone right next to hashtag meeting notes, just in the title of that post, so that you can go through and read all of the meeting notes. So someone new is coming in can go back through all those. If you're like, what did we talk about last week? Oh, let's make sure we knocked all the stuff out last week. Then yeah, you can go through every meeting and say like your first item in every meeting is to go through and check out what was in the last one and make sure all those tasks got finished or what's still ongoing, stuff like that. So yeah, note-taking, important. And then action items, just make sure you have like next steps from the meeting. You didn't just have a 30-minute meeting where like everyone got off the call and everyone's like, well, what now? Okay, let me get into Slack and let's decide what we're doing. Like, no, that's the whole point of the meeting, is like make decisions on things. So yeah, I think those two things are pretty important to me. What do you think, Christie?
I'm such a nutcase about this. I actually think we're about to see like my full type A on display. I don't really identify as a type A person. I really hate it when I'm described that way by other people because
Mm,
for the most part, my inner world is very shy. Right. And I think that, well, and you know, it's a different conversation about sexism and assertiveness in women. But um I think with meetings, I'm fully there and I'm comfortable in that role. I'm that person. I hate in all caps meetings
H8.
that don't have notes and action items by the end of them.
Mhm.
It's like, did this even happen? What did we even do? Did we just sit around for the last 30 minutes doing nothing? Could I have just been in my kitchen futzing around? I think that's why I don't like them, is because for me, without organization, time just goes by. And I really enjoy it. Like I like to just like sit around and think about stuff and drink coffee and like wonder about the future. So anything in which I'm not doing that has to have tangible recognition that it happened. Otherwise, it's like, what were we even doing? I could have just spent the last 30 minutes daydreaming, right? And so meetings, note taking, I swear when I'm on meetings where there is no designated note taker, I just designate myself as a note taker. I'm like, we're gonna have notes. I'm gonna send notes around. We're gonna, you know.
You're a great team member then, because I love those people who are like, I'm taking notes.
It's like I said, I really do love letting time go by. That's not the purpose of a
Mhm.
meeting, right? I need separation between what I'm doing with my time. We're not going to daydream together. When I run meetings, my meetings always have an agenda attached to them. And that's just so important, right? Like, I have heard team members in my life talk about how they get added to meetings where they don't know what the topic's going to be. No, 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 that's insane.
Yeah,
What? I would say
totally
no to
insane.
that. People know better than to send me meetings where I don't know what the topic's going to be, because no, I'm not showing up. I'm messaging you and being like, what is this about? What's going on? I don't get it. It gives me anxiety. No, absolutely not. And the other bit is I'm really nutty about recurring meetings and how we handle those. Why do we have a
Mm,
recurring meeting? Why does it need to be recurring if there's no recurring component to it? The point of a recurring meeting is so that we have a designated space to talk about stuff that comes up throughout the week. So every recurring meeting that I have has also a home for documentation where all of the meeting notes live. It can be as simple as a Google Doc. And it's just heading, date, attendees,
mm,
what did we talk about today? And then we open up that same document again the following week and we add on a new set.
cool.
And then that document also lives in the Google Calendar invite or the whatever space we have to track our
Yeah.
meetings. And throughout the week, when things come up that I want to talk about at that meeting, instead of pinging the person, right, like my stream of consciousness, I ping that recurring meeting document. That's why we have a recurring meeting, right?
Right.
So to me, that kind of stuff is really important. And that is the effort that I put forth into my meetings. And oh boy, it drives me nuts when I don't get the same kind of work back.
Yeah, that's a really good point though, about because like we throw our notes into Slack and that system kind of works for us. But I love the idea of just like having a Google Doc and just throwing all your notes there. Whenever you have a new meeting, date it, like move the old information down and start taking new notes at the top, and include that link right in the description of the event, so that like I missed the meeting, I can just go into that and check the notes, and I don't have to bug you in Slack about it, because
Mm-hmm.
giving people the opportunity to like solve their own problems is like a really, like, that's scalability. Like if you have 100 people all trying to ask each other like, what about this, what about this, like that's stupid. Like why don't we have a centralized place where everybody can get the answers they need to themselves? So I totally agree with that. The recurring meeting, like we have recurring meetings at WP Buffs, and it's like for like weekly, like we have weekly stand-up things, and we have like I have an SEO call every month to like go over like SEO results and stuff. So those kind of things, like the agenda is right there really explicitly in the event, in the Google events description. And it's pretty much like I'm looking at like I have a marketing stand up every Monday with Alec, who's our head of growth, right? And it's like right here in the calendar invite. It's like Alec's responsibilities for each meeting. Have list ready of tasks completed, worked on last week in progress. Have list ready of active tasks being worked on this week. Have a list ready of blockers, anything stopping you from progressing on your work. So it's really explicit, like what people's responsibility are for the meeting. And that's kind of the next thing in the list, which is like prepping for meetings. And I think that like people reacting and like asking time of other people to like get things figured out themselves, I think it will save a whole lot of time long term to have everyone be really prepared for the meeting. Now, not everybody has to prepare for every meeting, but like for our marketing meeting, like our Alec will like present the stuff he's doing, and I'll be there. And like, if he's like, oh, let me just open all my stuff and take 5 minutes to do that, like, well, probably should have been prepared for the meeting beforehand. Like, I'm here to like push things in the right direction and ask you questions and do all these things. You should probably be ready for the meeting. So that's another thing I have here is just like, if you're responsible for the meeting, or if you're like planning to have a lot of input and not just going to sit there being on mute, just listening, you should definitely like be prepared for the meeting. You should it doesn't have to be an hour, but you should put 5 minutes right into like making sure all your stuff's open. If you're sharing screen, making sure like you have all your ideas in place, and also like be up on your work, like know what you're talking about, like know the topics that we're going to cover so that you can not spend an hour talking about something you should have taken 2 minutes to talk about. So preparing for meetings, I think, is another important thing that everybody who needs to should be doing.
Yep. I've talked in like, I feel like kind of a lot of interviews and podcasts and stuff about one of the things that I'm really proud of at work right now, which is this office hours series, which is, I used to do it daily, every single day for an hour. I would sit on Zoom and just open it up to the entire company, everybody who works at Liquid Web, to come in and ask me questions about the product catalog. And we started doing, and I took notes, all the stuff that I'm talking about every single time. And I now have a document that is 24 pages long. I'm looking at it right now. That is first dated February 3rd and goes down all the way to September 3rd. And has notes on who came to each session, what we talked about, important links we discussed. And several people have told me that now they just have this thing bookmarked and they control F it when they have a question, because they think like, that's probably come up during office hours.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, another example of like actually scalable work, right? It's like you have everything in one searchable document. I mean, another piece of this is like building a culture around like documentation and like knowing where the right stuff is, and like having everything in a centralized like place to find it, and having everyone like know where to find stuff or know where to go to look to find out where they need to find it. But I mean, that's great, right? Because someone who had that question, one person who did that just avoided like a 10-minute conversation with you because they found the answer themselves, which is why you see so many support doc places like trying to like give people like self-help, like here's the FAQ page, here, find your own answer. Oh, do you still need to contact support? What about these 3 articles? Did you read these already? Oh, okay, now you can contact support. So it's like they're really just trying to like minimize their support load by like allowing people to help themselves. It's kind of the same around like meetings and note taking. It's like you want people to be able to find answers themselves. So I totally.
And not only that, but like I'm trying to speed up your work. Honestly, that's my bigger motivation, because I know myself, and I'm going to take longer to get back to you. I just am. I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not ignoring you. I just also have 17 other things calling for my attention, and I'm going to ruthlessly prioritize and not overwhelm myself, right? Like somebody else's lack of planning is never my emergency, right? And so that doesn't mean that I'm going to leave you high and dry. It means that I'm going to make all kinds of documents and videos and articles and things like that can be there for you every time that I'm not, because there's only one me and I only have 24 hours in a day and I waste 8 of those sleeping. So, like, that's, yeah, I'm really nutty about my meetings and my documentation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about quality of feed.
Yeah. Very important one. Probably one we should have tackled at the beginning. I think you did. You mentioned it already. But just again, let's talk about quality audio and video and quality and strong internet connection. If you can all turn into Christie and have Google Fiber internet speeds, you should definitely do that. Every time I hop on with Christie, we like talk about how fast your internet is, Christie. I'm always like, oh, I'm so jealous, stupid Comcast over here. But having a strong internet connection is important. I mean, everyone knows how frustrating it is when you're like freezing or like just like the technology gets in the way of the meeting. And the more you can do to avoid that, the better. So be proactive in trying to have good internet speeds and having your meeting somewhere where the internet speed is pretty solid. Quality audio and video is also important if you're doing video calls, obviously. But like we both have microphones for this podcast because we know audio quality is important. Video quality, we both have like pretty good cameras. I think top of the line cameras. Like we don't have like $3,000 cameras we have mounted somewhere, but like this Logitech camera I have, I think is like $200 or something. Maybe it's $300. I can't remember, but it's like medium level. And that does have effect for meetings. So I'd say like that's not the most important thing for like video quality, but audio quality definitely. And if you have a lot of meetings, like you should probably have a good camera because it's a good investment to make on, if you have 100 meetings and if you have 300 meetings, you spend $300 on a camera. It's like $1 per meeting to have like super quality video, and that high quality video definitely affected some things positively. So I think that's important. And then strong internet connection is just like, don't waste time like freezing.
That was a freeze. I agree. I think that it can be context dependent, right? We were talking about how, some people should be kept out of meetings, but most of the time, most of us should embrace meetings and be effective about them. I also think some people probably don't need great audio, but people who are on meetings a lot kind of do. And it goes back into that same conversation about it rubs us in a weird way to get interaction with someone that doesn't feel right. And part of that is fuzzy video and echoey audio and just a auditory and visual cue that doesn't feel like the real act of being in front of someone. And a good camera and some good audio goes a long way. Obviously, prioritization, right? I think my camera is like a $60 camera. It hangs out, my Google Fiber internet is pretty awesome. It is definitely one of my favorite features of having moved to Austin. And of course, I wired an Ethernet cord into my iMac so that I can have the full 1000, so great. Sometimes Joe and I just screen share me uploading things, just for the satisfaction, and not everybody can have that.
She clicks the button. It's crazy.
And not everybody can have that. But I definitely think that it's context dependent, right? If you're spending lots of time in meetings, you probably want to be putting more time in. And it reminds me of our episode about podcasting, the very meta podcast episode about podcasting. You'll grow the equipment over time based on what you need. But just keep in mind, right, that when they say, how do you get promoted over Zoom? The answer to that is you get really good at making those interactions feel like the way in-person interactions feel.
Yeah, big time. And as far as sales stuff goes, like if you're doing sales calls on Zoom or via video, like that video quality is going to be super important for a host of different reasons. One of the things you said kind of leads into the next topic, which is Zoom meetings. You only have to be in a Zoom meeting if you're supposed to be there, or if you have to be there, or if it's like a meeting you're supposed to be in. Like one of the reasons I used to hate meetings back when I was like doing government work was like, I didn't need to be in any of those meetings. Like, why am I here? Like, I'm just like, it's literally like a waste of my time. And I was never given the authority to say like, you can not be in whatever meetings you don't need to be in. Like, just like leave or don't be in them. And I think that's really important. I think that's a big culture thing too. Like that needs to come from managers and like leaders in organization. Like there's a whole Amazon thing where it's like only the amount of people in the meeting should be able to like split like a large pizza. Like that's the amount of people that should be in a meeting, which is like obviously a big generalization, but like it's about the idea of like you shouldn't have like 20 people in a meeting if 20 people don't have to be there. And you probably, if you're going to have 20 people in a meeting, it should be more like some of the meetings you have, Christie, where it's like you maybe have 100 people in a meeting, but like obviously everyone's not talking. Like it's more like have a lot. Most
it's almost like a webinar.
Talking. Yeah, totally. And if you're having a meeting to actually get like actual meeting to like get things done and make decisions, like obviously you're not going to have 100 people in the Zoom room to like decide on something. So I think that's an important feature. And giving people the authority to say like, I don't need to be in this meeting. I'm trying to do that more often. Like, Dean, do you need to be in this meeting? Like, I don't know. You can come if you want to, but like, if you don't feel like you need to, like someone else can fill you in because you can check out the notes that someone left.
I think it can be really powerful to empower your employees, especially the ones that are really trying, right? Hey, you can say no to stuff. Yeah. We're going to add you to stuff.
Explicitly.
Yeah. And you can say no to stuff. Yep. I think saying it explicitly goes a long way. And a lot of people maybe don't think about that type of explicit communication as being necessary, but it is.
Yeah, agreed. This next one's a funny one because we talked before we jumped on this call that we're both not great at this one, but it is important, which is being on time. Especially kind of more for Christie because like, well, if you have a lot of people on the call and like you're 5 minutes late, like, well, of course, like especially people are waiting for you, like then that's 5 minutes like of a bunch of people's time kind of like wasted diddling around. Maybe not as important for me if I'm only having like 2 or 3 people on the call, but regardless, it's also like I know it bugs me when like I show up to a meeting on time and someone else shows up like 7 minutes late, like, hey, sorry, I'm late. Like I just had another thing. I said, no, show up to meetings on time. But like I'm also a hypocrite because I do that too. Like I
use that today for this recording.
On this call, I Slack Christie, hey, I'm gonna be a little late. My other meeting's running late, which is true, but it's also like, and obviously Christie and I know each other very well, so like, yeah, we're cool about it. But and we do this pretty often actually. But if like you're trying to have efficient meetings, I think it's important to like show other people respect and to try to be on time more often than you're not. Obviously, this is going to be kind of a company culture thing and an attention to detail thing, and it may not be like some companies may be fine, like kind of starting 5 minutes late. Like I'm not saying that's bad. Honestly, I don't think it is. Like, I think it's okay to be a little informal, but I think it's important to, I mean, if you're late, you should say sorry for being late. Like, didn't mean to waste your time on that. I don't know.
This is my Achilles heel. You don't understand how deep this goes, okay? Like, you know how there's that joke about when you're in an interview and they ask you what your weakness is and you can never answer honestly, all you have to do is like say like, I just work so hard, right? If I was ever asked that question, first of all, I would leave. That's a stupid company asking that stupid question. But if I wasn't going to leave, I would, and I was going to answer it honestly, and then this definitely wouldn't get me the job. It's like, I'm late to stuff. I'm always like 2 to 5 minutes behind. That has just been a thing in my life ever since I was a little kid. Like I was like late to school, always like 2 to 5 minutes. I was late in college all the time. I don't know. Like I just, my brain can't understand time. And what's really unfortunate is that, to a lot of people, especially in North America, 2 minutes of lateness is a sign of huge disrespect, right? Whereas a lot of people will joke about sort of what lateness means in Latin American cultures, right? Where when you're told to show up at a party at 7, you're not supposed to be there until 9, right? Like things like that. And so for me, it's a cross of culture and instinct and education. And it's just like when you were talking about, like, if you call a large meeting with 50 people, you can't be 5 minutes late. I've been that person. And then everybody gets really mad at me and they message me in Slack and they're like, we're in the waiting room. And I'm like, I know, I'm getting there. I don't know. I'm getting coffee, and it's an interesting contrast, I think, because of what I'm talking about with the action items and note taking in the agenda. I always send out agendas, like all of these items. Everybody always knows what's going on, right? Like I never invite anybody that doesn't need to be there, doesn't need to contribute a conversation, right? Like I actually didn't think about it in terms of time. I'm like, if I invite 8 people to this meeting and it's only 30 minutes long, what are people each going to talk for 3 minutes? No, screw that. We're taking people off, right? And so it's interesting. Being on time is really important. And it just so happens to be a weakness of mine. I'm so good at everything else, I couldn't be perfect.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we listed 10 things here. No one's going to be perfect at all of them. And that's probably a good place to end, which is that we're all going to have weaknesses. Probably like there are a few of these things that are weaknesses for me. Like being on time is definitely not a strength for me in these things. And like, yeah, maybe something I need to work on a little bit. Maybe something you need to work on a little bit. Like we all have our rooms for improvement. So that's a good place to end, which is like this list is a good of like how to have a perfect meeting, but like you're not going to just like implement all these things immediately perfectly every time. A lot of these things have to be built into culture, note taking, being on time to things, like making sure you're prepping for every meeting and being really efficient in your presentation to your like boss or manager when you're meeting. Like these things don't just, anybody who's a manager will tell you, like, it's not just something you tell people to do and then it's like done. They're good at it now. Okay, great. I'm glad that was so easy. Not how anything works. You have to practice it over time, and over months and sometimes years. You build these practices into becoming part of your culture. And that's all a culture is. It's just like doing things repeatedly over and over again. And then like that's what it means to be part of the culture, is like it's baked in because you've done it a bunch of times, pretty much, right? So yeah, I think this is a really good list of stuff to go off of. So yeah, anything we missed here, Christie, or anything that kind of last second thoughts?
I love the way you're wrapping us up so that I'm not late to my next meeting.
See, very respectful. So we've got about 2 minutes to wrap up. So we can go ahead and push to the end of the episode. If people want to leave us an iTunes review.
WPMRR.com/iTunes. Leave us a review. Are you a new listener?
Especially if you're late to your next meeting. If you're 2 minutes late to your next meeting, you can take 2 extra minutes to leave us a review and then show up 5 minutes late to your meeting. It's totally fine. If you are a new listener, you can check out some old episodes. We've got a bunch, 100+ old episodes, all amazing, incredible, stupendous. Go and check out the catalog, WPMRR.com/podcast to listen. Questions for
oh my gosh, email them to us at yo@wpmrr.com. We love receiving questions.
Yeah, we should change that. I don't check that email that often, but I'll get it, but not that fast. But if you like tweeted us, it'll be faster. Like, and we like to talk about tweets and stuff on Twitterverse of WordPress. So okay, first tweet, and then, but if you want to email, that's fine. But like, if you wait 7 days to get a reply from me, like, don't hate me. Okay, cool.
Disregard. Tweet at us instead.
WPMRR.com for virtual summit coming up soon. You heard a little pre-roll for it in this episode, but go register. We're raising lots of money. Christie's going to be talking. Allie's going to be hosting. Brian from WooSesh is going to be involved. I mean, all sorts of great stuff. So if you're growing or want to grow a subscription WordPress business, come join us for a 2-day virtual summit. Cool. That's all for this week. We'll be in your podcast players again next Tuesday. All right. See you, Christie.
Bye.